I have never really understood salmon fishing, or a salmon fisherman for that matter. I think it's peculiar and a bit strange to see people actually be sucked into to a so single-minded universe. And here, single-minded is a very, very positive phrase, and simply be devoured, almost be completely submerged in something completely as completely as it can be, as people can be by salmon fishing. I have never really understood it. I think and I hope that this is because I have never really done it. I've been fishing in Norway for 6 or 7 or 8 times a week at a time, fishing on some beautiful rivers with beautiful water, casting with two-handed rods and with all the tube flies and all the stuff, but I've never really hooked and never really landed a salmon. And I think that's probably why this salmon fever has never really caught on with me. I hope that is the case, because when I see and talk to people around in general, fishermen I've fished a lot with, and who fishes a lot of different stuff, at the mere mention of salmon, a lot of people who actually have done this and really are experienced with this, you can tell if they have had the salmon fever, if they have caught it, because as soon as you mention that one silver creature, their eyes goes a bit milky, and they maybe start to sweat a bit more in their hands, and their talk becomes more intense and more hectic, because they know, and I don't, but I really want to know. I really want to be one of those people who, at the mere mention of salmon, simply gaze into the horizon with that knowing look, and that frantic look as well. I want to become one of those. So I've decided to skip the line and take the short track to try to experience this if I have the skills and the right mindset to become a salmon fisher. So a salmon fisherman. So I've decided to go to Kola, Russia. I hope that will be a journey that will take me not only to a place far remote out in the middle of nowhere, but also a journey that will make me a salmon fly fisherman. So here I am in Russia, and I'm simply just excited. In about an hour, we're gonna be picked up from here, and then it's off to the chopper, and then we'll fly to the river. And I'm really excited to have these next 6 days to simply just be submerged into this fishing, to just fish and do nothing else, to have no worries, no concerns whatsoever, to simply just be submerged, fish, and just fish, and hopefully catch some salmon. I'm looking forward to fishing in a river where I actually knows there is salmon. I'm hoping a lot to catch some, but I've had a lot of misfortunes with this in the past, so I'm not sure I'm gonna catch some, but I really hope I will. So, we arrived at Kola. I jumped out of the chopper and simply just sprinted to my tent, dragged out all my fishing equipment, rigged up, and just, went like a madman for the river. I talked to my friends a lot, and they know how I am and how intense I can be about fishing when I'm really in the zone. So they just let me, and so I fished and I fished and I fished and I fished for the next 1.5 days. I fished and I fished and I fished, and I caught nothing. First Daniel, the other Daniel on the trip, caught 2. Then he was on 3. Then Christian was on 3. Then Bo was on 3, and then Søren was on 2. So all of them were catching fish, and catching quite good and quite nice fish.
My arm hurts from fighting fish.
All but me. I was becoming desperate. I was becoming all the things that I was so frightened about were before I went to Kola were coming true. You know, I was casting and I was fishing and I was doing all the stuff that I thought was right. All the stuff I read about in the books and seen in the videos. And I was changing flies constantly because I simply did not believe in anything I did at that time. So after 1.5 days, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was completely exhausted. I've slept for 3 hours that night, so I went back as the last person home from the river to the tents. I entered the eating tent, and there I found Sergey, the camp manager and the guide. And Sergey asked me the question, "Oh, any luck, Daniel?" And I told him, "No, not yet. I simply do not understand it. I was frustrated, I was tired." So I told him, "I cannot believe this. I think I'm simply not cut out to become a salmon fisherman. I don't know what it is, but the fish simply, they just ignore my flies. I cast well and all other types of fish I can catch, but the salmon is just, there must be something completely wrong with the way I do things." Then he looked me in the eye and said, "Yeah, there is, David. There is something you're doing wrong, and I can help you." I really needed to hear that, and I had reached that state where I was desperate. I needed advice, and I was actually in a state where I was willing to listen. Because many times you can get good, sound advice from people, but it's not always, at least for me, it's not always that I actually listen. Because many times I think I know better myself. Not this time, because I truly wanted to catch a salmon. So I was paying attention. And he told me this funny story. He said, "Daniel, you're like a pointer. You know the hunting dog, a pointer? That is really keen and really intense and really on its prey. Salmons don't like that. You need to change your mindset. You need to become a Labrador. You need to become a more free, a more happy, a more relaxed fisherman, or you will never catch a salmon." So tomorrow, Daniel, tomorrow you and I are gonna go down, and I'm gonna show you a few tricks and show you a few spots, but you have to promise me that you will try to be a Labrador instead of a pointer. So I drank my beer, went to sleep, and next morning after breakfast we divided the waters between us, all 5 of us, and all the others were doing quite well, so they thought it would be thought it a good idea for me to go with Sergey. So we went down to one of the best pools to start, sent 2 of the others further downstream. And then Sergey said, "Now, before you start fishing, take some deep breaths and wait 30 seconds. Simply just look at the water. Inhale the atmosphere of the river and just be here. Don't be a pointer, be a Labrador." After the 30 seconds that felt very long, he told me how to wade and how to fish the upper part of that pool, and I did so, and I realized some things about the angle of the fly, for instance, the speed of the fly that I didn't realize before. I didn't hook any fish on the first part of that pool, so we went down to the second part, which is actually the better part of that particular stretch of water. And then he said, "Before we start fishing, let's just move over here and just crawl onto this big rock. You can just peek over the rock, and you will probably see some salmon standing across from here on a certain stone." So we did that. We peered over the rock, and as he said, there were 2 salmon standing there. These 2 salmons were roughly 3 kilos, something like that. Not big fish, but definitely fish. I mean, I would have killed to catch either of them. And while we were looking at these, a new fish entered the pool from the rough waters downstream, and this looked completely different from the 2 others. It was completely blue on the back, and you can simply see this was a fish that came directly from the ocean. And it stopped a bit further down than the 2 other fish, and Sergey said to me, "That fish is fresh. That fish stands at the exact correct location where it will take a fly if you present it correctly. And if you present it while being relaxed, while being being here, but not being the pointer. So he told me exactly where to wait and how to stand on a certain stone to get the right angle. So I did that. Then he told me to wait for 30 seconds before I cast. So I did that. And then he told me to place my fly 10 centimeters on the left side of a certain rock. So I pulled off some line and I placed the fly where he wanted to be. He said, "That's a very nice cast, Daniel." And then I felt it. I felt that unrelenting, very, very strong, very, very resistant, forceful tug when the fish grabbed the fly. It was as simple as that. A salmon grabbed my fly. And then just everything went berserk. It was everywhere in the pool. It jumped around. It was maybe 6 kilos, something like that. Completely fresh, very, very silver, and it just went around there. And I was a bit panic stricken and really wanted the fish, so I played him, Sergey told me, and then finally, when he was ready, I backed up into the rocks as he told me to, and right at the moment where he was going to place his hands on it and land it for me, my fly lost its grip, and the fish swam completely exhausted 3 meters out and stood on 2 meters of water, and we could simply just stand there and look at this wonderful creature that I did not get to take a picture of. And that difference, from actually landing a fish and getting your trophy picture and then losing him, well, you know that feeling. It's a harsh one. So, well, I checked the leader, tied on a new leader, and then we went downstream to the next pool. Here Sergey told me about a couple of rocks I should fish at. He also said, before you go down there, just take a few short casts here. Sometimes there is a fish here. And I did that, and on the second cast, another salmon grabbed my fly. Not a small one, a small grill set, maybe 2 kilos, something like that. And right at the second where he was gonna land it for me, my hook lost its hold, and that fish was lost as well. So I fished the pool down, and at the bottom of the pool was a certain stone he told me was the best spot in that entire pool. So he told me to place my fly approximately 40 centimeters behind the rock and stand on another certain rock in the stream to get the right angle. So I did that, and again, as soon as my fly hit the right spot, I did it on the second try, I think, I felt the tug. That immense feeling of something unseen, a beast-like force of freaking nature simply just pulling in the rod and bending my rod, and the water exploded, and another 5 kilo fish was breaking hell. Long story short, at the exact moment where Sergey was about to grab it to pull it up, I lost him as well. And Sergey was cursing in Ukrainian, because he's a Ukrainian working at the Russian River. And he said, "Daniel, god damn it, that was a very good fish, and it would have been so nice for you to catch one. Now you've lost 3. Let's go down a bit further down. There's this small spot where sometimes fish stand for a very short period before they move on." So we went down there. He told me where to cast, and I cast like he told me. And the 4th fish of the day grabbed my fly. But this time, everything worked out. It was like magic. I played the fish, and finally I got one. I freaking got one. So I landed this beautiful, beautiful silver creature with sea lice at approximately 3.5 kilos. It was broad, it was heavy, it was just gorgeous. Released it, and I was just amazed. But Sergey told me, yeah, that was nice, but there's probably one more, so why don't you go and try for that? And I did. I hooked him, and I landed another one, approximately the same size. So I had moved from, and that was what was the wonder of the day, I'd become a Labrador. I have learned how to do this, and how to catch salmon. The salmon fever had gotten me, and I knew how to do it. So Sergey gave me a hug and told me, Daniel, now you know how to be a Labrador. Now I will go and talk to Søren and Christian instead. And so I did. So I just sat there on the bank, looking over the river, being a Labrador, soaking it all in, and realizing I've hooked 5 salmon, more than 2 times all the salmons I've hooked in throughout my entire life before, in all the 2 months of casting in Norway. So I became a salmon fly fisherman. But I think I became more, because that evening, that night in that tent with Sergey, where we shared that beer, and he told me about how I needed to change my mindset, that really did something profoundly for me. It really, I think it really did change my mindset. Because when I came home, and had been home for some weeks, and my wife and me were talking about Russia and stuff like that, she said, I've begun to notice a change in you. What I've noticed, Daniel, is that you are slightly better at paying attention. You're slightly better at listening, and you are better at accepting when other people make points that make sense. You caught some salmons, and that was very good. But I think what really happened to you was bigger than that. I think that you changed in Russia. You changed for the better. So what I learned from this is, sometimes it's better to listen, because no man is, or at least me, because I am not correct all the time. I can learn a lot. And I learned a lot in Russia. If I hadn't been willing to learn, I would not have become a Labrador. And I must say, being a Labrador is something I'm very happy to be.